Okay, what's up, guys? I'm back with what I think is going to be episode 6 of Ryan Wesson's MMA Talk. Um, Tonight, I'm a little bit late, but I'm gonna do a quick review. I'm gonna try to keep this short. It's pushing 10:45 on a Sunday night. I gotta be at work in the morning. I was gonna do this last night after I watched the UFC Poland card, but me and my wife, we had plans last night, so I got home real late and I just decided to wait. So, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to review quickly Bellator 185, which was Gegard Mousasi and uh, Alexander Shelemenko. Alexander Shelemenko. Gegard. The 185 card was headlined by them, Gegard Mousasi and Alexander Shlemenko. And the other fight that I'm going to talk about on the card is Christina Williams and Heather Hardy. As far as a little bit of detail, another notable fight on the card was Neiman Gracie. He had he submitted Zach Bushka, I think is how you said the guy's last name, by with a neck crank in the second round. But he's undefeated still. I think that made him like 6-0. But Heather Hardy, she was having her second fight in Bellator in MMA total. Actually, she had her first MMA fight back in June on the Madison Square Garden card, and she won TKO in the third round, I believe it was. And for people who don't know, Heather Hardy is a former two-time world boxing champion. Her first fight in Bellator was her first fight in MMA ever. She came straight over from boxing, took an MMA fight in Bellator. Like I said, won. Well, she was having her second fight in MMA, and she was fighting a girl who was making her pro debut, named Christina Williams. I'm not exactly sure what the overall betting odds were, but I know Christina Williams was an underdog. Heather Hardy was a favorite, and I actually think it was a pretty decent margin. I'm not positive on that, but I think that was the case. Well, they come out right from the get-go, and supposedly it was said that Heather Hardy had stopped focusing solely on boxing. Like in her first fight, she was still pretty much training nothing but boxing, but she was working a little bit of takedown defense, and that was it. Well, in this one, she started training kickboxing and was working a lot of jiu-jitsu. Well, you could not tell it, to be honest, because she came right out and she looked sluggish right from the get-go. Her punches did not look crisp, and that's weird considering the fact that she's a former two-time world boxing champion. But her punches looked a little sluggish, and Christina Williams was staying on the outside, and she was just, lighting her up with kicks. She would a 1-2 high kick, 1-2 high kick, just straight right left high kick. It was just, she was letting her have it big time. Eating her up with kicks. She landed one in the fight. Well, I'll get to that in a second. She landed a high kick in the first round that I want to say opened up her nose a little bit. Opened up Heather Hardy's nose. At the end of the first, I know there was some blood involved. Well, Heather Hardy clearly lost the first round, and you were like, okay. I was like, well, maybe this newbie, or this debuting Christina Williams, maybe. I had a fun fact off the top of my head that I saw on the broadcast. It was her debut as a pro, but she was 12-0 in overall in combat sports. as an amateur. I wanted to say it said she was like 3-0. It was maybe like 3-0 in boxing amateur, like 4-0 MMA, and 5-0 kickboxing. She had participated in all three as an amateur, and she was undefeated. But this was her debut. Well, she like I said, I'm getting way off topic here, but she was looking crisp, and maybe you were thinking like going into the second after she won the first round pretty handily, was lighting Heather Hardy up on the feet. There were, to my just just remembering off the top of my head here, after 2 days, because the Bellator card was on Friday, but I don't believe there was any type of ground transitions whatsoever, no takedowns. It was pretty much an entire kickboxing situation. Okay, but they go to the second round, and I started picking up on this late in the first round, and it was the reason all the head kicks were landing and landing flush. Heather Hardy was like bobbing and weaving off of the and trying to counter Heather Hardy the way you would in boxing when you do not have to worry about a kick coming up at your face. Like, Christina Williams would shoot a right straight out, Heather Hardy's head would fall off to the left, and she would throw a right high kick and it would land. Same thing, she would throw like a 1-2, Heather Hardy's head would fall off to her right, and she would shoot a left high kick up. And I mean, it was like her ankle was just slamming into her face every time. And that's what busted her nose open in the first round. Pretty much more of the same in the second. And then she lands a clean one. There was a GIF going around on it. I know of it. I retweeted it, I want to say, on Twitter. She shoots, it was like a 1-2, just a standard left jab, right straight. Heather Hardy drops off to her right and tries to throw an overhand left. And when she does, Christina Williams shoots that left high kick up, and I mean, like, the crease of her ankle, where her ankle and foot meet in the bend there, it wrapped around Heather Hardy's nose, and it looked like somebody had shot her in the face. I mean, basically from her eyeballs down past her tits, and she was just blood red everywhere. Doctors come in and stop the fight. Christina Williams wins by TKO in the second round, 2 minutes on the dot in the second round. How good Christina Williams is overall, she was 12-0 as an amateur overall in combat sports. Now won her first fight against Heather Hardy. Heather Hardy didn't look like a world beater in her first fight either, but she was coming in as a boxer with no MMA experience whatsoever. But she picked up a W. Came back here, did not work out for her. Lost in pretty brutal fashion, to be honest. I mean, she got tore up. She put a picture up on her Twitter. It was just a still shot of her standing there with her hands on her hips while the doctors are coming in to look at her. And I mean, she looks like someone out of a horror movie. Whether or not she comes back to MMA again, because she claimed after the first one that she loved it, that she had never had that much fun. Well, I assure you, what she experienced Friday night was not fun. So, we might see her in Bellator again, but I'm not expecting it to be anytime soon, really. I mean, she took a pretty good beating. But that is something she's going to have to work on, though. The way that she is bobbing and weaving off to her sides, the way she would in boxing, that's not going to work in MMA the same way. If she is going to do it, you will see some people do it in MMA. Anderson Silva used to do it and get away with it. But you've got to be extremely quick. Like, if your head's going to shoot off to the side, you've got to get it back out of the path of kicks. It's just different. I mean, you can't just fall off to the side and leave your head laying there. That's one of my biggest things that bothered me with the Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor fight. is the way Floyd continued to give us back to Connor, and the way they'd keep all that weight on their front leg, and they would just fall off the side like that. I mean, like you can just kill someone with kicks. It's not real. Like if you just stand in front of like I have very 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 little MMA experience. I mean, I've trained. I'm still a member of a gym here in my hometown in Ellick City, but I've never fought professionally, never fought amateur. I don't plan to do any sorts. But if like someone was to try to attack me on the street or whatever, and that's the way they decided to stand, I'm gonna kick the shit out of their leg as hard as I can. I mean, just it just doesn't work in real situations. And Heather Hardy, she found out the hard way, like falling off, weaving off to the side and trying to throw that overhand left. I mean, oh, she just ate so many head kicks. But but moving on, but we'll leave it at that. She took a bad beating, and she was a mess afterwards. She's 35 years old, I want to say. How many of these she does, I'm not sure. That might have been her last one. You might see her come back again. I'm not sure. I just know that Bellator was banking on her because she's pretty. She has good looks to her, and she went out in the first rep fight and got a W. And they can throw her on a commercial and be like, "Hey, watch us on Friday night," and people will be like, "Oh, that chick's hot. Oh, she's supposed to be pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna watch." Because looks do sell. Paige Van Sant in the UFC is middle of the road, to be honest with you. I mean, she just is. We saw what happened when she fought. She's fought two elite fighters in her career. She fought Rose Namajunas and she fought Michelle Watterson, and both of them ate her ass up. But she's gorgeous. They can throw her on Dancing with the Stars. They can put her on a commercial. They can put her as the headliner of a card, and more people are going to tune in to watch her than they are other girls in that division. Even the girls who are better than her. It's just, I mean, some people can sell and some people can't. If you've got looks like that and you're a female, I mean, you can sell as long as you have some fighting ability. So, we'll see where she goes from here. But the main point, the reason I was excited for Bellator 185 with Gegard Mousasi and Alexander Shlemenko. Okay, if you've listened to my podcast before, you know Gegard is in. I think I've mentioned it at least. Gegard is in my top 5 favorite fighters. I'm a fan favorite. I mean, I'm not a fan favorite. Gegard is a fan favorite of mine. I've been watching that guy all the way back from Strike Force. If you're curious, if you haven't, Cowboy Cerrone, Mighty Mouse, TJ Dillashaw, Gegard Mousasi, and my 5th one, I can swap them in and out sometimes. Whenever he's actually fighting, Carlos Condit is in there, Chael Sonnen is in there. I can throw in several different guys. I might have a new one, but I'll get to him in a minute. So we get Gegard versus the former Bellator middleweight champion Alexander Shlemenko, and I knew he was supposed to be okay. I've seen him fight one other time before, and it wasn't a good performance by him. It was Tito Ortiz's first fight in Bellator when Tito took him down and caught him in an arm triangle in like a minute. I want to say he was the current 185-pound champion at that time, and it made Bellator look bad, kind of, because you got Tito, who couldn't win a fight to save his life other than the luckiest guillotine of all time against Ryan Bader. He comes in and like smokes your 185-pound champion at the time. I want to say he was the current champion when that happened. And then that was the only time I'd ever seen him fight at that point. I want to say I might have been wrong about that. I watched him fight Kendall Grove a few months back, maybe even a year back. I'm not sure. It was a very small Bellator card they had. I don't even think it was live. I think it was pre-taped and then showed later. But Kendall Grove and him fought, and I watched that. He TKO'd Kendall Grove in like the second or the third round. But so I knew he had some kind of talent. He might be able to be in the top 15 in the UFC, maybe like in the bottom half of the top 15. But Gegard was running on a 4 or 5 fight win streak coming into this fight out of the UFC. If he wouldn't have left, I mean, he would have been right there for a UFC title shot. He wouldn't have got it because GSP is gonna fight Michael Bisping, and that's just got the division like on wrap right now. And then you've got Luke Rockhold, who came back and got him a win and all that. But let's see, he 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was on a 5-fight win streak. He beat Talis Laitis, Thiago Santos, Vitor Belfort, Uriah Hall, and Chris Weidman, all in succession. And then he's coming over to Bellator. I was thinking, it was a good matchup for him. A guy that maybe might be able to be ranked in the bottom half of the top 15. What in the world? Okay, guys, I apologize for that. I'm sitting here in my little game room that I have set up with my Xbox and all that. That's where I usually do these because it's on the other side of the house. My wife and my little girls already went to sleep, and all of a sudden headlights started coming in through the window. Kind of gave me a miniature heart attack right here. Some guy was just turning around or whatnot. But okay, back to what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Gegard fighting Alexander Shlemenko. He, maybe be able to be ranked in the bottom half of the top 15 if he was in the UFC. Good matchup for Gegard. Maybe come in, have a good showcase. He gets that win. He can get a title shot. Because Gegard has said he's interested in fighting at 185 and at 205. He wanted to try to be a dual champ in Bellator, which we've heard that before. It hasn't worked out for many of the other guys who have came over from the UFC to Bellator. That's a whole different topic on itself. It's like, I mean, you're really getting to see like how good some of the guys are really in Bellator. Like, you've had so many people. Ben Henderson is a prime example. And I've seen people saying the UFC got rid of Ben Henderson right at the right time, right when he was falling off. I don't think Ben Henderson was falling off at all. If I'm just off the top of my head, if I'm remembering correctly, Ben Henderson's last fight in the UFC, he beat Jorge Masvidal at 170 pounds. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'll look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And if that's the case, I mean, there's no way that you can say, like, the guy was falling off. And then he came over and got tore up in his first fight in Bellator. Has not looked good at all, really, since he's been over there. Split decision victory over Jorge Masvidal in South Korea. And then he came over and fought Andre Korshov for the welterweight title, his very first fight, and it was one-sided. Man, he took a beating in that fight. It wasn't even close. And then he beat the Patricio Pitbull, the younger, the smaller of the two Pitbull brothers, and he was losing that fight. And Pitbull threw a leg kick and like broke his own leg, broke a bone in his ankle, or broke his a fracture in his shin or something like that, and the fight had to be stopped. And then because of that, he got a world title fight against Michael Chandler, who I'm a big fan of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler sometimes jumps into that top five right there for me. I swap those guys out. But the Michael Chandler fight was actually competitive. That was a very good fight. It actually made it onto, it was the MMA awards this past year. It made it onto their list for, it was like broke down to 5 fights that the fans could vote on. It made it onto that list for fight of the year. It was a very good fight, competitive. But in his last fight, he just fought the bigger Pitbull brother, Patricky, and lost a split decision in a fight that I think he might have actually won, but nonetheless he took the L in it. It was super competitive. I mean, it was Ben's normal style of fight, picking shots, standing up, getting the grappling exchanges up against the cage, and so on and so forth. And he usually gets the nod in those. He's had more split decisions than I know how to count, but those usually go in his favor. That one did not. But because of that, now he's 1 out of 4 in Bellator, and the one was because of ankle injury to a guy. I mean, so. But this wasn't supposed to be about Ben Henderson. I got way off topic here, but it's kind of interesting that you've had these high level guys. The only person who's looked solid in their come over so far has been Rory McDonald, and he's only had his first fight. He's going to fight for the title in his next one. But Chael Sonnen, he dropped the ball big time against Tito Ortiz in his first fight. He bounced back against Wanderlei Silva and did what he should have. What I was thinking was going to happen was he was going to be able to hit those power double legs and get Wanderlei to the ground, which he did. But, okay, anyway, back to the topic at hand. Gegard Mousasi, Alexander Shlemenko. Gegard comes out. They're standing off at kickboxing range, and Gegard's being very patient, slow, the way he normally starts his fights off, and he takes a left hand, because Alexander is a southpaw, that hits him directly in the eyeball. It almost shuts his entire right eye closed. Like, he doesn't have any major swelling around the cheekbone, the orbital, or anything like that. Like, he broke a bone in his face. It was like the knuckle hit him directly on the eyeball, and the eyeball itself swole. Like, his eyelid and all was all puffed up, and his eye was almost shut. Well, that happened in maybe the first 2 minutes of the fight. And after that point going forward, Gegard was not the same. He shut down his striking almost completely, started only trying to get takedowns, and in the first round it worked for him big time. He was able to get a takedown, and he spent anywhere from 3 to 3.5 minutes, I would say, on Alexander's back, and was threatening with rear naked chokes the entire time. He went for it several times and almost pulled him off. And so Gegard clearly won the first round, even with taking the punch to the eyeball and his eye shutting. He wins the first round, spent 3 to 3.5 minutes on Alexander's back. Depending on, there's not a specific rule statement as far as to what a 10-8 round is. If we see someone get dominated due to strikes and almost get finished, you sometimes want to throw that 10-8 out there. But, there can be a 10-8 that comes from a grappling exchange. And having someone's back for 3 to 3.5 minutes worth of time, that could be argued. But nonetheless, I don't think he was given a 10-8 round. in the first. I'm just saying it is a it could be a possibility. Okay, they come out in the second round. Gegard is almost scared to death of being on his feet. He can't see, his eyes almost shut. In between the rounds, they brought the doctor in to come look at his eye, and the doctor let the fight continue, which I was actually worried about because the doctor was checking him out real hard, and his eye was shut to the point it almost looked like he literally could not see. So they let the fight continue. My mind's not working tonight. It's hard for me to. I can usually just rumble and rumble and rumble on without even thinking about stuff or whatnot. And I'm having to think about what I want to say tonight. So they let the fight go on. They go to the second round, and Gegard comes out and he immediately shuts down his offense on the feet. He is only trying to go for takedowns and very sloppy ones at that. He's shooting double legs and such from way outside of the range that he should be shooting them. And Alexander was stuffing a lot of them. So, well, actually all of them. I don't remember Gegard getting a takedown in the second round. Alexander wins the stand-up exchanges because Gegard is pretty much not throwing anything back. He's just kept protecting that right eye and trying not to get hit and shooting sloppy takedowns. So Alexander clearly won the second round. They come back out for the third, and it's more of the same that you saw in the second. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, Gegard's about to lose this fight. And Gegard finally got a takedown maybe in like the final 2 minutes of the third round, but the fight only stayed down there for like maybe a minute. I don't even remember, to be honest, how long they were down there, but it was not very long. And gets back to the feet, is more the same. Gegard not really wanting to throw anything whatsoever. Alexander throwing a lot of spinning back fists. Fight ends. And I'm sitting here watching my TV thinking to myself, I was like, Jesus Christ. He literally just came over riding a 5-fight win streak in the UFC and just lost his very first fight. I was like, Bellator just can't catch a break. They get like a big signing like that, a guy who's clearly one of the top 5 middleweights in the world. They get a signing like him, and he comes over and loses his very first fight. Well, it goes to the judge's decision, and if I'm not being biased at all, if I'm a judge, I scored that fight 2-1 for Alexander. They were all 3 judges, and I can look it up. I don't think it was. I think it was a unanimous decision. All 3 judges 2-1, 29-28 for Gegard. Gegard Mousasi versus Alexander Flamenco. Scorecards. Nope. All 3 judges had the fight scored. All 3 judges gave the third round to Alexander. All 3 judges gave the first 2 rounds to Gegard. I personally thought that Gegard lost. Wait. Wow. Really? I thought for sure that Alexander Shlemenko's best round was the second round, and that I was thinking for sure that the 2 rounds that they gave to Gegard was the first and the third because those were the 2 rounds that he got his takedowns in. I don't remember him getting a takedown in the second round, and that was pretty much his entire offense of the entire fight. But okay, so all three judges first 2 rounds to Gegard, all three judges the last round Alexander Slamenko. So, but yes, the whole point of that and me taking 30 minutes when I said I wanted to do this quickly to get that out was to break down the fact that you're wondering, like, are these guys coming in and they're feeling like a ton of pressure? Because even though they're coming to like a smaller organization in Bellator is definitely the B brand. Between the UFC and Bellator, it's not even close. It's like I'm 6'2", and it'd be like the UFC's at the top of my head, and Bellator is down around my belly button, and then you would have World Series of Fighting, who's now PFL. They'd be down at like my ankles. They're without a doubt the C brand. Because Bellator can compete. They have about, I've discussed this before, but in almost every single weight class, they have at least 2 guys who could come over to the UFC and be ranked in the top 15. I'm willing to say that. The Professional Fight League, not so much. They had I I know they had Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje, and David Branch. Rick Glenn, maybe. Rick Glenn beat the piss out of what's the old guy's name? I don't remember, but the fight card, that might have been the DC Jones fight card, the undercard. Whoever Rick Glenn, he beat the daylights out of that guy. Not Rick Glenn's the one who did the beating. Gavin Tucker. Gavin Tucker was the guy's name. Rick Glenn might be ranked in the top 15. I have no idea. But so the PFL had maybe, I don't know, they might have 5 guys who could possibly be ranked in the entirety of the UFC, where Bellator maybe has 2 to 3 in every division. But some divisions more, like their light heavyweight division, definitely more. Their light heavyweight division, to me, is almost on par with the UFC's, other than like maybe the top 2, because John Jones is out right now. So you've got DC and Gus, and then Vulcan, who the jury is still out on Vulcan. He beat OSP. He beat Misha Serkinov, and then beat Jimmy Manawa. The only problem is, to me, he came in, he actually surprised me big time in the OSP fight, because that was his very first fight in the UFC. Nobody knew who he was, or at least I didn't know who he was at that point. And he clearly beat OSP in the first round. I thought OSP won the second and the third round. The second round was a lot more competitive, and in the third round he was gassed because he took the fight on short notice as a replacement for OSP. And in the third round he was just sucking wind, and OSP put it on him. I thought OSP took the second and third round, so I personally thought he lost his first fight in the UFC. But the judges gave it to him. It was an upset. And then the fight against Misha and Jimmy Manawa, it didn't even last 1 full minute. If I'm not mistaken, he's gonna fight DC for the belt next. So, there's that. But you got those 3. And we're in the Bellator light heavyweight division. You've got King Mo, Ryan Bader, Phil Davis. Emmanuel Newton's no longer there. Vital Vassal, something Vassal. Guy that Ryan Bader is going to defend his title against. I believe that is the very next Bellator card. That might be the Friday night, the night before GSP and St. Pierre. It's like November 3rd. He's defending his title. What is this guy's name? His last name is Vassell. Linton Vassell. Yes, and that's Bellator 186 on November 3rd, so the night before UFC 217, which will be November 4th. You got Liam McGreary, who I'm a fan of. His striking and his jiu-jitsu is awesome. I still stand beside the fact, and I know I've said this on a previous podcast before, he has, in my opinion, possibly the worst takedown defense in all of MMA. A strong breeze could put him on his back. But, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to UFC Fight Night, Cowboy versus Till. Because I've been going for 36 minutes now, and I was maybe hoping to shoot this under 30 minutes total for the entire thing to cover both cards. I talked way too long on that first part. Okay, so I was only going to cover 2 fights, really. From the UFC Fight Night card that happened Saturday. I watched the entire card live up until the point of the 2 fights that I'm going to break down, which is Karolina Kovacevic and what was the name of the lady that she fought? Jodie Escobar. But, I mean, just a quick rundown of other people that have names that were on the card. There was actually, it was weird because the undercard had more names as far as that I was familiar with than the main card did. Oscar Pichota and Jonathan Wilson, they were on the main card. They opened the main card. Oscar Pichota doesn't have a Wikipedia page. I'm not sure. I've never heard of him. I don't know if he was a Polish fighter and they put him on the main card because he had ties to the hometown crowd or what, but and I didn't know the Jonathan Wilson guy either. But on the undercard, Josh Emmett, who's out of Alpha Male, he picked up a win. You had Aspen Ladd beating Lena Landsberg. Aspen Ladd has been hyped up a little bit. She came in and looked good. Lena Landsberg, she fought Cyborg at her last fight at 140. Bless me. Warley Alves, he got another win. Andre Fili, beat up Artem Lobov pretty soundly. Dropped him with a head kick. Artem was still coming on strong in the later part of the fight, but Andre figured out in the second round that Artem could not stop his takedowns, and so Andre Fili started going to that. He would get Artem to commit to the striking exchanges. He would land his shots. As soon as Artem would go to fire back, he would shoot a double leg and put Artem on the ground. Artem kept trying to go for heel hooks when they were down there, and he would use them to get back to his feet. And but as soon as they'd get back to the feet, it was pretty much rinse and repeat. Andre would step in, throw off a combination. Artem would go to fire back, double leg. They're back on the ground. I want to say, I'm guessing he's a Russian fighter. Ramazan Emev beat Sam Alvey, and Sam Alvey did not look like himself at all. Sam Alvey was like tentative, didn't really want to engage. He took the fight on short notice, and I don't think he made weight either. It became like a catch weight fight. He did not look good though. He was coming off of his win against Rashad Evans, in which he really didn't look like himself in that fight either. But you could have possibly said it was due to nerves in the Rashad Evans fight. He's never fought anyone with that kind of a name before. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, it was the Rashad Evans fight. He beat Rashad by split decision. Brian Kelleher TKO'd Damian Stasiak in the third round. He looked good. Marcin Held finally picked up his first win in the UFC. He's really good. He came over from Bellator and had a rough go. Really, he fought for the lightweight championship in Bellator against Will Brooks, and he lost. And then he rebounded with his last fight in Bellator, and then he signed with the UFC. He came in with a 22-4 record. You know, I mean, he's Polish. He's very good. I'm pretty sure Marcin Hill's Polish. Yeah, his nickname is the Polish Prodigy. But he came in against Diego Sanchez and lost his first fight in the UFC. And you know, maybe it was octagon jitters, you know, so on and so forth. It happens to a lot of guys. But then he came out again against Joe Lozon in a fight that I clearly thought he won. And the judges gave it to Joe Lozon in a split decision. I didn't even think it was close. I actually had the fight scored for Held all 3 rounds, 3-0. And Joe Lozon even said after that fight, he was like, I'm not sure, you know, what you guys were watching. I lost that fight. And then in his last fight before this weekend, he fought a guy named like Damir Hadzovic. I'm not really sure how to say that guy's name, and was winning. He won the first 2 rounds, came out and shot for a rolling knee bar right out of the gate in the 3rd round and ate a damn knee right to his temple and got knocked unconscious. I mean, just chalk that one up to bad luck. I mean, you're dominating a guy pretty much on the ground, and all of a sudden you shoot a rolling knee bar right out of the gate in the 3rd round and you get knocked out. But he finally picked up a win, which is good for him. And then, like I said, we got to the main card, and it was Oscar Piechota and Jonathan Wilson. Didn't know either one of them, but Oscar Piechota won. And then you had Jan Blachowicz. I'm not sure how he exactly pronounces his name. John Blachowicz. Devin Clark beat Devin Clark. Devin Clark was like the RFA light heavyweight champion, I want to say. Dana White, he was one of Dana White's looking for a fight guys. Yeah, and what was this? This was his 4th fight in the UFC. He got knocked out by Alex Nicholson in his first fight in the UFC. And then he came back up. He had 2 straight wins at light heavyweight. He took that first fight at middleweight, and yeah, then he took on John Blachowicz this weekend. Blachowicz choked him out with a standing bulldog choke, like almost like a standing rear naked choke without hooks set in the 2nd round. But we'll get up. Well, I guess I'll kind of blow through this one too. Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Jody Escobar. Just hats off to Karolina. She did exactly what she was supposed to. Jody Escobar, this was her first fight in the UFC. She's had 6 fights in Invicta. So, I mean, you know, if you've got 6 fights in Invicta, you know, you're fighting good competition. That's where pretty much 90% of the girls are coming from that are in the UFC now. The entire 115-pound division was all from Invicta. I don't know if Joanna fought in Invicta or not. I could look that up, but I'm not going to. I know like Rose Namajunas came from Invicta. Michelle Watterson came from Invicta. Pretty much a ton of them. I'd probably say more than 75% of them came from Invicta. But anyway, Carolina pretty much, she did exactly what she was supposed to. Very, very high strike output. I want to say at the end of it, she had thrown over 400 total strikes. And I don't even know if Jody threw 100. Carolina might have landed more strikes than Jody threw. I mean, she put it on her. High combination counts. 5-6 punch kick combinations. She won all 3 rounds. 30-27, 30-27, and 30-26 on the judges' scorecards. So she got a 10-8 round in there from one of the judges at one point. She did what she was supposed to. She's clearly the third. Well, you say that. She's clearly the top 5 and the top 5 of that division, no question. The only 2 people she's ever lost to, she beat Rose Namajunas, who's going to fight Joanna for the belt next. But she lost to Joanna in a fairly competitive fight. She won a round against Joanna. I think the round where she rocked Joanna and broke her nose. I want to say the judges gave her that round, so it was 4-1. But the only person who's won a round against Joanna other than her is Claudia Gadelia, which Claudia beat Carolina as well, but it happened early in the first round. They were in a wild transition. She took her back and choked her out. I'd like to see what she could do against her again if they don't get caught that early. But, she's clearly top 5 of that division. Can beat anybody on any given night. Maybe not Joanna, but I think if she got a chance to run it back against Claudia Gadelia, I'd like to see what she can do, because I think she's better than what she showed. I did not expect her to get choked out in the early moments of that first round. It only went a minute, 2 minutes at the most. She's fought Joanna twice. Her only loss as an amateur was against Joanna as well. So she had one before the Claudia Gadelia fight. She'd only ever lost to one woman. Okay. But getting up to the main thing I wanted to talk about more than anything, that's Darren Till and Cowboy. Okay, Cowboy is probably my favorite overall fighter. I did not know almost anything about Darren Till. The last UFC Fight Pass card, which was Stefan Struve and Volkov, Alexander Volkov. Darren Till fought on that card, and that was the first time I had ever watched him fight live, or at all, actually. And he looked really good in that, but, didn't think anything about it. Then it comes out, they're going to fight, and I was like, who is this guy? I went and looked him up, and I was like, oh yeah, I watched him fight. So this weekend, Friday night, I watched every fight that Darren Till had on Fight Pass, which I think was only 4. And I believe all 4 of them were his fights that he'd had in the UFC up to this point. And I was just sitting there almost in shock and awe. I was like, dude, this guy is unreal. If you sit here and look at his full blown skill set, this might be a problem for Cowboy, because I was obviously pulling full blown for Cowboy. Cowboy's my number one as far as the guys I root for. And sure enough, they get in there, and Darren Till starts doing immediately what he was doing in all the other fights I watched. It didn't matter the competition that he had fought before then compared to Cowboy. He was doing the exact same thing. He has this big, wide stance. He looks almost like Conor McGregor striking. Southpaw, big, wide stance, shoots, bounces back and forth, waits to pick his shots. He's not throwing a ton of combinations. He's watching you. He tries to slip, and all of a sudden he'll pop you with the left hand. Will step in extremely quickly with an elbow. Very good takedown defense. The Cowboy tried to take him down early on, could not get it. Darren Till starts peppering him with left hands. breaks Cowboy's nose, gets him up against the cage, unloads on him. Cowboy goes down, basically gets into a fetal position. Referee saves him. But man, the fact that Darren Till looks as impressive as he does is absolutely unreal. Like, I mean, I'm a die-hard fan of MMA. I've watched probably, like, I've said this before, I have not missed one single UFC card since 2008. Not one. I've ordered every single pay-per-view since 2008. I've seen almost every Bellator card in the last 2 years. I mean, I don't know how many fights that is, but I would say easily I've probably seen 3,000 MMA fights. Darren Till's a problem. That guy, I mean, I said it on Twitter, but I'll say it on my podcast right here and just go ahead and record it. I think that guy is maybe not the next champ, the future a future champ as a welterweight. His skill set is unreal. He is 6'1", weighs 205 pounds, is fighting at 170, but he moves like a 145er. The speed that he has to be his size is unreal, and the fact that he can just read his opponent's strikes coming in, slip them the way he does, shoots in and he hits you with those straight left hands. Man, his skill set is unreal. He says in that strong Liverpool accent, he's like, I've said it before, I think I'm the best fighter in the world, y'all just don't know me yet. And dude, after beating Cowboy, he's in the top 10 now, I believe. He went from not ranked to top 10. Throw him in there with whoever you want. I like his chances. I mean, dude, he's sick, man. You throw him in there with somebody like, which obviously is not going to be. He had a big confrontation with Mike Perry afterwards. Mike Perry's going to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio. He might fight the winner of those two. I'm not sure. I don't think Mike Perry wants that problem. I like Mike Perry too. I'm a fan of him. Mike Perry makes me laugh, and he's vicious in the cage. But dude, if Darren Till does what I saw him do to every person that I watched him fight this weekend, I basically watched 5 Darren Till fights this weekend, 4 previous ones, and then 1 live. Man, I said it a while ago. I don't know any other way to phrase it, really. The dude's a problem. He's a straight up problem. He's only 24 years old. Oh, man. I'm looking forward to whoever he fights next. Big time. But anyway, I've rumbled on and rambled and said a whole bunch of bullshit for almost an hour now, and I did not want this. I wanted this to go maybe 30 minutes at the most. Biggest takeaways, though. Gegard struggled big time. I thought he lost the fight. He got lucky and got a win. He was promised if he got a win that he would get the title shot. The guy's Rafael Clemente or something like that. I forget the middleweight champ's name. I've only ever seen him fight once, and that was I've actually seen him fight twice. I watched him fight Melvin Manhoff both times he fought him. The first time, everyone thought that he actually lost that fight, and the second time is when he head kicked Melvin and knocked him out. But yeah, so supposedly he's going to fight him for the title next. He was told that he was promised with a win he would get a title shot. So if he looks like he did in Friday night, he might not win it. I don't know. He did not look good. Heather Hardy, take away from her is I don't know if we see her fight MMA again. You might, but she took a really bad beating. She's going to have to... she's 35 years old, and she's been boxing for quite a while, and she has tendencies there that she was using that she should not be, and she paid for it. So I'm not really sure what comes of her. We'll have to see. Carolina looked good, did exactly what she was supposed to, went in, solidified herself as she's clearly top 5. They said on the broadcast top 3, but well, she beat Rose, so she might actually be top 3. But with that, that could be debatable. I would say without a doubt she solidified herself as top 5. Cowboy Cerrone has now dropped 3 fights in a row. That's tough. He came into the welterweights. I was worried about him because he was so undersized at welterweight. He only walks around at I think I've heard him say he walks around at 176. You have guys like Darren Till was, people at that weight class aren't normally that big. I think he might even be bigger than Woodley, the champion. Woodley walks around at 200 pounds. Darren Till's walking around at 205. I don't know, but he came in at welterweight and was looking solid. He picked up 4 fights in a row, 4 wins. Then he got stopped by Jorge Masvidal, had a close fight with Robbie Lawler, and just got stopped in this one. So he's on a 3-fight skid now. Maybe he fights so much. Maybe he might just need to take a good rest. Or you know what, Father Time might have just finally caught him. He's had what's his record? He's 32-10 now after that loss, so he's had 42 fights. I mean, he's 34 years old. Father Time might just be catching up. I mean, he catches up to everyone eventually, and he's been fighting for a really long time. 34 is not old, but whenever it says, okay, you've lost a step, then that it is what it is. It happens to people all the time. Matt Hughes was not very old whenever he dropped off big time. Matt was only in his mid-30s. I don't even think Matt Hughes is 40 years old yet. He might be 40, but he's been retired for several years now. He was in his mid-30s. So, I'm not really sure. You could see, we could possibly see, Cowboy come back out after this again. I'm not sure if he'll still be ranked in the top 10 after this, because he had made it all the way up to 5 whenever Masvidal knocked him out, and then he lost to Robbie Lawler. I think he came in ranked at 8 on Saturday. So, and that's a three fight losing streak. So, I doubt he's ranked in the top 10 after this. But anyway, Darren Till, very impressed. Like I said, I've watched all his fights he had in the UFC over the weekend. And I told myself after watching those, I was like, if he comes in and does that against Cowboy, he's going to be a problem. And sure enough, I could see it in the first 30 seconds of the round. And I was like, oh yeah, he might finish Cowboy. And it didn't even make it out of the first round. Kid's a problem. When I said at the beginning of the podcast that I might have someone new to insert into my top 5 spot, it might be him. I'm a big fan of that guy's work. He is impressive. His skill set is very, very nice. But anyway, that was my long and drawn out and really unnecessary review of Bellator 185 and UFC Fight Night Cowboy versus Till. I think that was Fight Night 118. But anyway, I might do a preview show for the card coming up this weekend. I'll have to see. The card coming up this next weekend is Lyoto Machida and Derek Brunson in Brazil. I want to say the co-main event of that is Damian Maia and Colby Covington. I'm not really sure who else is on the card off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up, but I might do a preview show for it. I might not, but either way, I'll probably do a review like this on that. So, anyway, that was it. I'm done talking. I should have been done almost 30 minutes ago. I'm coming up right at 1 hour right now, so I want to wrap it up. If you decide to listen to this, cool, thank you. If you don't, you know, click on it, give me a like and a subscription. I'll appreciate it. Thank y'all, man. Y'all have a good night.